Welcome to the Wedding Weeds podcast. Your host is Tracie Morris, award-winning certified wedding planner at her company, You're the Bride. Tracie has over 2 decades of wedding industry experience. She is a mentor, blogger, and influencer, and she shares real stories, tips, and advice with couples who are tying the knot. Tracie's team helps busy, engaged couples maneuver big and small details so that they can enjoy their wedding experience instead of getting lost in the details, which is much like getting lost in the weeds. Enjoy this episode.
Hi, friends. Welcome back to another episode of the Wedding Weeds podcast. I am your host, Tracie Morris, and today we are talking about having pets in weddings, specifically dogs, because if your dog is basically your other soulmate, of course you're going to want them involved in your special day. But dogs can add heart and personality to the wedding day, but they're also going to require some real planning and logistics. So this episode is going to be all about how to include your pup safely, responsibly, and stress-free, of course. So I get asked all the time by clients about having pets in weddings. And let's be honest, if your dog is basically your first child, and you know it is, the idea of having them not in the wedding kind of feels wrong. So that's why you want to include them, right? So dogs can be super adorable. They're emotional, Instagram gold. However, it's going to be a complete nightmare if they're not handled properly. And you already have enough going on your wedding day. So we're going to talk about how your dog should be in your wedding, whether it should be in the wedding, and some tips on, how to make this a smooth transition, because it can be overwhelming for the dog, how to include them safely, so they're not stress-free as well, and how to avoid a full-on disaster during the ceremony. So let's go ahead and dig in. Here's the first thing. Should your dog really be in your wedding? But before I get into logistics, let's start with a really important question. Is your dog actually suited for a wedding day environment? Because, as a wedding planner, I often tell couples to consider, is your dog going to be comfortable around a crowd of people? Are they okay with loud music? Are they going to be okay with clapping, sudden movements? A lot of dogs are very, fragile. They're nervous Nellies. I know I had a dog, not myself, but my aunt had a dog that was, very jumpy. I've seen friends' dogs that are jumpy. They could be jumping on children. There's a lot to evaluate, right? Do they behave well on a leash? Are they going to be, pulling all over like the person that's bringing them down the aisle? That's another thing. We had to find somebody that is going to handle the dog handler or the dog whisperer, maybe. I don't know. But anyhow, are they going to be anxious? How are they going to react in a new environment that's not their house? I mean, there's a lot to consider, right? So, loving your dog doesn't mean forcing them into a stressful situation, because I know you probably have your heart set on it. It's super cute. It could be like magazine worthy, but there's a lot of dogs that just aren't going to be able to deal with being in a social setting. So they'd probably rather just chill out at home and, take a nap while you're getting married. So there's just some things to consider. And I thought it might make for a good episode to chat about it today. So if your dog is one of those dogs that gets easily overwhelmed, there's still other ways that we can include them. And I've seen the cutest ideas from my clients. One in particular, actually a couple, one of them had their dog's face on their cocktail napkins that we had at cocktail hour. Super cute idea. I've had another client that basically took their face as well, but they put them on like drink coasters. I've seen them on menu cards before as a little motif kind of thing. So there's plenty of ways that you can include them. As we know, a lot of couples out there, they get their engagement photos taken with their dog. So that's a way to include your pup. I've even seen a little dog as a cake topper instead of the bride and groom, or the bride and groom with a little dog next to it. Let's see, what else have we done over the years? Signage, like your welcome sign coming into the ceremony or the wedding. You can have your dog on that. Oh, another super cute one I did a couple years ago. See, that was, out in Ann Arbor. She had these dog cutouts that were part of the photo booth. So they were basically almost life-size dogs, and they were super cute. So people could go in with the dogs. I know I had another client at the Dearborn Inn. They did something with they had some cutouts too that was super cute for like photo booth props and whatnot. So there's a lot of ways to incorporate them if you don't want to, make the dogs stressed out, because it can be definitely a stressful situation. So they don't physically have to be at your wedding, but I totally get it if you want to have them there. I would personally love to see a cat in a wedding because I'm a cat lover, but I'm guessing that probably might not happen. You never know. I did have one request a couple years ago. This is crazy, but the girl wanted to have her pet pig in the wedding. It did not work out with like city ordinance. It was an outdoor wedding in a park, so we had to skip that. But I haven't seen any other requests other than dogs. I mean, those obviously are the most popular. You've probably been to a wedding maybe where there's been a cute dog, but you don't want them screaming and not screaming. That would be a child, right? In the background, barking, because then you're not gonna be able to hear the vows. That's going to irritate the videographer who's trying to pick up the sound. So just have to get a plan together and find out if your dog can handle being in that situation. So basically, the bride and groom should never be responsible for handling their dog. I mean, you two are already, there's a lot going on. You might have high emotions that day. You will have high emotions that day. You don't need to deal with the stress of a dog. So, you're going to want to designate a pet handler. There are professional companies out there that you can actually hire to do this. I had a couple about a year or so ago now, and they actually hired a company, and it was wonderful. They came in and I coordinated with the pet handler, I guess is what you want to call it. Concierge, I believe is probably the proper word. But I talked to her and went over logistics. What time is the dog coming? Basically, the bride and groom, they drop off the dog, I believe, the night before. I think they had to fill out probably a questionnaire, have a conversation with that vendor and, give the food and, what time does your dog, usually take the walk or take a nap or whatever they need to do. It's kind of like childcare basically for a dog. So in that case, there is a fee, obviously, but again, we're professionals. We're paying for a professional service. So if you want to have your dog in the wedding, then if there's not a trusted friend that you want to put that task on, which, they need to enjoy the wedding, it might only be for a short time, then it would be a good idea to hire a professional vendor that knows what they're doing. They're trained in handling dogs. And this particular wedding, it was an outdoor wedding, obviously, because not many churches are going to allow a dog in. I did have one couple that asked about that, and I was like, yeah, that's not going to fly. They're not going to let a dog in. But it was a very smooth day because the pet handler brought the dog. She was responsible for the dog. It was really a nice experience, and the couple was thrilled, So I would say, never, if you're on a limited budget, don't ask your mom to do it, your maid of honor, or anybody that is, involved in the ceremony. It's not going to work out. You need somebody else. So I would say, again, go ahead and pay the extra amount and get the service unless you know somebody that maybe isn't as close to you that, is okay with handling the dog. Because what that person is responsible for that day, I mean, I feel like you're putting a lot on them, is they have to arrive with the dog, they have to feed them, they got to calm them down, they have to work with me, the coordinator or planner, on any necessary cues on when they're coming down the aisle. And, dogs, like children, they have a mind of their own at certain ages, and they might not listen. So yes, it'll be cute if the dog does something funny coming down the aisle. And if you're okay with that, then that's totally fine. But a dog, they're going to probably get just overstimulated in that environment. So we don't want something really super long. Most outdoor ceremonies that I do are maybe 15 minutes, 20 minutes. I remember my own wedding. It was in a church, but mine was 13 minutes. So some of these weddings that are outside can be pretty fast. You just get them done, and then the person can take the dog back to where they need to go, which is nice because if you do have the service, then the concierge person, they stay through the ceremony, and then they will handle the dog during photos because, after the ceremony, you're going to go to pictures and you're going to want your dog in the pictures in your wedding dress. So once that's all done, and then they're going to load that dog up and take it to their, kennel or wherever they're having it overnight. Make sure the dog gets fed and watered and walked and all that. So, you have peace of mind because let's face it, animals are like our children. I know for me, I don't have kids. I've always had cats, but they're like my baby. So I'm sure most of you listening to this can feel that too. I mean, we love our animals. We just do. So your dog does not need to be present all day, but trying to get them in those photos really quick would be great. And then you can have your dog concierge person take them home because it's just too exhausting for a dog to be in that environment. It's loud, it's chaotic, and a stressed dog is going to be, irritating for your guests because it could be barky. If there's food set up, this little puppy is hungry. They're going to maybe go up to your guests and try to get like appetizers if it's like an outdoor cocktail hour and trying to get food out of people's hands. We just don't know if they're a rambunctious dog or what. A lot of people have those, it could be a champagne tower outside or just, other little food stations set up. And the last thing we need is your dog jumping on top of food because, it can happen. I'm not saying it'll happen with your cute dog, but, we don't know when they're in that environment, their personality could potentially change. So let's talk about the logistics, the practical details that most couples are going to forget. I mean, first of all, you've got to do your homework or, talk this over with your planner and she could check into it if she's your full service planner like myself. Is the venue going to allow pets? There's a lot of venues that are going to say, no, absolutely not. We don't want to deal with that because, they all go to the bathroom and who's going to be cleaning that up? So they're just going to say no. But there are some that may be a little more pet friendly. I do work with a venue in Pontiac. I'll give them a shout out, the Pontiac Transportation Museum. They will allow pets over there. I believe there might be a small fee for that, just in case there is some cleanup or whatever with the dog. So you can certainly expect that. I don't know of any other ones off the top of my head, but most of them are probably going to say no, unless, of course, it is an outdoor. The wedding that I was referring to was over at the Fox Hills Golf Club in Plymouth. So we had the ceremony outside, out back near that gazebo, and it was beautiful. So we also got to consider, the weather because your dog has, the paws and it just might be too hot. What if it rains out and then you've got this dog with muddy feet? I mean, in that case, your planner, like myself, would obviously be coming up with a plan B for the ceremony. We just need to figure out all those logistics and what we would do in a situation like that. And of course, thunder, we all know that thunder and lightning is going to stress your dog out too. So it may not end up happening if he or she is just too frazzled. What is the dog going to wear? Do you want to have them wear like a cute little tuxedo? I've seen bow ties like on the collar is super cute. You want something that they look cute. They don't even really have to wear an outfit, but it does look cute if they had if the girl one had a ribbon on her or something like that. And then there's we have to make sure during the time that they're there for pre-ceremony pictures, you have to bring water. If you're going to do it or your family or the concierge person, of course, is going to bring water and their favorite treats, poop bags, obviously, this is stuff that, if they have a favorite treat, you're going to be dropping it off the night before when you give it to the professional concierge service. A lot of times or all the time, you're going to want to make sure your dog is vaccinated because what if something were to happen, God forbid, and your dog bit a child or a person and then you've got a lawsuit on your hands. So those are things to think about too. Definitely don't want that because that's going to spoil your event right there. If then things turn for the worse and you've got an angry dog and that would just be a mess on your day. So I would just say, we have to think ahead. We have to set expectations. Probably a really good idea to bring the dog to the wedding rehearsal and just do a test run, right? Because that's going to, help them kind of figure this out for the next day. And just so we can kind of see, like, how do they do walking down the aisle? And it may go well, it may not. So somebody is going to obviously be guiding them down with the leash, so it should be fine, but they still could be a little bit in distress. You just never know. And if the dog decides, because again, they have a mind of their own, you would have to have a plan B, really, if they refuse to cooperate, right? At that point, you're just probably going to be like, okay, we can't have the dog in the wedding. But, some couples may still be having like the little cocktail napkins made up because they really want their dog involved. So I would say always, if you want your dog involved, then I would probably have like the little cocktail napkins made up or a picture. Or actually one couple, they made a signature drink with, I believe it was the dog's name. I'm thinking Cooper, but I don't recall off the top of my head. But that's another way to incorporate it. So there's a lot of things that you can do, but I just would not force the dog because that's just not going to go over well. But, the dogs are super cute and everybody loves them.
Hey friends, have you ever heard about a Built Bar? Well, I'm about to tell you about the Built Bar. It is a fabulous chocolate treat and it's actually good for you. These protein bars taste like a candy bar and they will knock your socks off. If you know me personally, I'm out on social media always talking about the Built Bar. They are the best thing that I have ever discovered. And I discovered them one time on a trip to Arizona and my friend handed me this Built Bar and I had never heard of them. So I tried the coconut puff and oh my God, it's amazing. These Built Bars are low in sugar. I'm talking only about 7 grams, low in calories, about 140 calories a bar, high in protein, which is what you want if you're working out, you're trying to lose weight for, a wedding maybe, any special event, or just to stay in shape, right? Because we all could use a little bit of weight loss in our life, trying to fit into those pants. 15 to 17 grams of protein. The flavors are amazing. Cookies and cream, cookie dough. We've got brownie batter, mint chip. Aren't you salivating? Yes, you are. Chocolate milkshake. Hello. Everybody's on the salted caramel train. They've got churro, mint puff. I mean, the list just goes on and on. But also, these have collagen in them, which is good for skin when you're getting a little bit older. But you guys got to check these out. I do have a special discount code you're going to be putting in at the checkout. YTB, of course, for You're the Bride. Built. BUILT. It's all together. YTB Built. And you'll get 10% off your purchase. I'll go ahead and put this in the show notes, but I really hope that you'll try these because once you do, you will be hooked just like me. Got to try it. Got to love it. They're amazing.
Including your pet in your wedding can definitely be meaningful to, the bride and the groom or the couple, I should say. But it has to be thought out, planned, and you have to do it responsibly because there's just a lot of factors. You're already going to be thinking about, there's so many moving parts to the day and things going on. And that's the last thing, is trying to figure out the dog. So I definitely would recommend getting a professional concierge person to handle something like that. And, because your dog basically, they're just subjected to this and they're not going to give a darn about, the timing and the florals and all the other stuff that's going on that we care about. I would say, the best thing to do is obviously plan ahead. I'm a planner, so I'm always planning ahead. Have a plan A and a B. Figure out who is going to be responsible for the dog. And if you can, keep your ceremony, short and sweet. Because the sooner that it's over, then the better for the dog, because you don't want something to happen. And I would say just consider the dog first. And if you follow these steps, then that shows that you really care about the dog and your guest, and, the safety of the guest. But you know what? If you decide that after listening to this episode today, if it's like too much and you're like, oh my gosh, Tracie, I didn't even think about those things. And right, who am I going to put this responsibility on? I don't know. So then if you're like, okay, we did get our engagement pictures done with the dog. I guess that's good enough. We did bring cocktail napkins. We named our signature drink after our dog. Then I guess that's enough. Then maybe just leave the dog at home, and then you don't even have to worry about anything else. And it doesn't make you a bad dog, parent or anything. I think you probably made a better decision than to keep them at home. But then, of course, if you do that, you're going to have to find somebody that is going to let them out anyhow. Maybe at that point, a neighbor that wasn't invited to the wedding, you could have do that, because you don't want somebody leaving your wedding and having to go check on the dog, obviously, because then they're missing out on the celebration. And that's why it's more of a pro if you're really going to do this and you think your dog can handle it. If you ask yourself all these little questions and scenarios that can pop up, like, is my dog going to be okay? Then it probably is best to hire the professional and spend the money. As far as pricing on that, I've seen it range. Now, it's not cheap, but any good professional service is not going to be cheap. You pay for what you get. We all know that. I want to say, I know it was over $1,000, I believe. So you're probably like, oh my God, $1,000 to take care of the dog. But you have to consider, I mean, they're meeting with you the night before, getting the stuff, getting your, information on your dog. They're going to have travel time involved. They're going to be at the wedding for probably at least an hour to 2 hours while they're waiting for the ceremony to start, through the ceremony, and then those pictures afterwards, right? Then driving the dog back to where they're keeping the dog. So time is money. And if you want to service and handle correctly, then you do have to put that money out.
Hey, what is better than a wonderful scented candle when you get home from work and you light it and your room smells amazing? Well, you've got to check out these new scented candles. They're deluxe by Arangus. I have a special discount code for you, 15% off at the checkout when you use the code You're the Bride. That's YOURE, the bride, all together. It doesn't matter, caps or no caps. They're amazing. They're out of New York. You got to get it now.
I have had some clients ask questions too, because they're like, well, I had this dog. I really want the dog in the ceremony or be part of the day. So people have just said, how do we handle, like, if they are going to be the actual ring bearer? Okay. So that's kind of a whole nother ball wax, because I would recommend not having them actually have the real rings, just some fake rings. Your best man, I think, is more well suited to have the rings in his suit pocket. But I have seen it happen where they're like, no, we're going to put the real rings on, like a pillow or something to that effect, or on the dog's like collar, which is cute. It's not a good idea because, diamonds and dogs, what if the dog ate the ring or something like that? And then you got a whole nother set of problems, an emergency situation, then you're yelling, is there a doctor in the house? And you got to get a veterinarian involved. So I'm not trying to scare you with all these things that can happen, but this is real life. And when you're dealing with a pet, an animal, this is the stuff that can happen. And then think about this. Is your dog a real yapper? Dogs bark. I mean, it could be the most well-behaved dog, and you're insisting to your friend or your concierge person, oh, no, my dog doesn't bark. It's totally fine. It's not hyper. That may not be the case on the day up because there's extra people around. What if they just see a bird, that irritates them and they're trying to go get it, then there's all that going on. So they're going to bark, but if it happens, all you can really do is like laugh it off. And at that point, if it gets to be too much, your concierge person is going to know to, remove them from the ceremony so things don't get out of hand, right? It depends on also, what kind of dog do you have? Like one of those little dogs. I'm trying to think of the dog we have. I mean, it's a good sized dog. It wasn't like, a Doberman. I wouldn't recommend that around people, or a pit bull. But I do know though that I've heard that some pit bulls are pretty good, but I would not recommend that. I did have a friend that had a pit bull, and it was actually a nice dog. I was like, I'm surprised about that, because pit bulls do get a bad rap. But it's all about their temperament Are they calm? Are they cute? You just never know. Something could set that animal off. I've seen it before. So I would, not at a wedding, thank God, but you watch TikTok videos of things gone wrong and animals at weddings. So stuff can happen. Like I was saying earlier, people have asked me, can the dog stay through the reception? But it's like, why? What do they need to be at the reception for? That, first of all, they're not going to be allowed in the ballroom. So that's when, if you're trying to incorporate the dog, that's when you would have your cocktail napkins or those big photo cutouts or whatever. That would be fine. So, and then you might have, let's say you really love the dog or he really loves the dog, and you're both going back and forth like, should we have the dog in the wedding or shouldn't we? So then that could start a little argument, right? Because that could be your dog before you met your new boo, who's going to now be, say, your husband or your partner. So you guys just have to compromise and figure it out. So if that's the case, I would say have them be comfortable, maybe just do the photos. Your engagement photos would be something to do. And another tip would be, obviously, engagement photos, wedding day photos, you might have the same photographer, you might have a different one. Most of the time, when you're booking your photographer, you're going to have the same engagement photographer as your wedding day photographer. I mean, I've seen it vary a little bit, but most of the time, in my experience of 26 years of being a planner, it's been the same person for both event days. You're going to want to ask them, hey, have you ever photographed a dog in a wedding? What's your experience like handling the dog? Because you want the dog to obviously sit pretty, right, for those photos, or just be comfortable handling a dog. Like if you're going to do some creative shots, the photographer probably has some cool ideas and they can be creative and just trust that person. So I would say if you're interviewing videographer, they will basically take the lead and kind of shadow the videographer or the photographer. Just make sure. You might want to double check on allergies too. And that goes back to your guests themselves, because you're outside, yes, but you just don't know, like, if that's going to affect someone, if you're sitting if the dog concierge person is sitting right next to them, what if they're deadly allergic to pets? So these are all things you have to think about, because that's going to make for a horrible experience if they can barely breathe, asthma or that dog dander in the air. So there's just a lot to think about. Anyhow, but if you think you want to have a dog, like, more power to you. But I hope today's episode was helpful and you'll actually consider all these little tips and pieces of advice before you, maybe put your dog through this or decide to leave them at home. But anyhow, if you are enjoying the Wedding Weeds podcast, and I really hope you are, because I love doing the episodes, still going to try to bring you at least 2 a month. Sometimes we get a little off track because we're busy with our clients and whatnot, but we do have another episode coming soon after this one, of course, and there's I'm just going to try to keep them rolling. So if you could please follow the podcast, like it, share it, spread the word, because I am trying to get our Wedding Weeds podcast to grow like a weed. I'd really appreciate your support. If there's anybody out there that would love to make a donation to our show, I would be more than happy to give you or your company a shout out in the next episode. You will find a link in the show notes to do that. And we have fan mail. Okay. So please, if you want to give me some feedback on the episodes, a topic that you're interested in, there's also a link on that. I do have quite a bit of stuff in the works of different topics, but I'm open to more, something you wanted to learn about or pick my brain on or something like that. I would love to take some ideas from the audience. So that would be great. Don't forget, we are also on YouTube. So any episodes that do have a guest on or guests, that will be on our YouTube channel. So please like and subscribe to YouTube, and you can find us on there at Detroit Wedding Planner. That would be wonderful. And just a little side note that, graduation and prom is just around the corner. It's going to be here pretty quick. So just know that we would love to help you with that. We are very experienced in those kinds of events. I urge you to get in touch with us for a complimentary consultation. You can either call us at 248-408-4602. Visit our website. You can fill out our contact form. So just remember, even though our company is You're the Bride, we definitely do more than just weddings. We love doing different things out of the box, corporate events. We're available for that for work through the week. Always love weddings, retirement parties, birthdays, basically whatever kind of event, team building. I'm up for it. I would love to be considered for something like that. So that wraps up today's episode. Thank you for tuning in to the Wedding Weeds podcast. I'm your host, Tracie Morris. Bye for now.